Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Now today's first story comes from Rainin Sakuras, who says, "Am I the arsehole for refusing to support my son's pregnant girlfriend until she takes a paternity test? My son, 24 male, and his girlfriend, 24 female, have only been together for 6 months, and she is apparently 4 months pregnant with his baby. They have actually been friends since high school, and so my husband and I have known her for a few years as well. She is a lovely girl, but honestly, she is not someone I had hoped would be the mother to my first grandchild. First of all, she is a recovering drug addict and an alcoholic. And while she says she has been clean for 3 years, a relapse is always possible. She only finished high school with her GED and she now works as a waitress full-time. Her parents died years ago and she is largely on her own. Our family is considerably better off, and my son is joining his father's business, meaning his salary will be quite high and will only continue to grow. Since my son first told us she is pregnant, it can't escape my mind that he may not really be the father, and that she picked him out of potential others because he would be the best in terms of support. My son is pushing us to help her with some of her pregnancy expenses, and I told him we would under the condition that she get a paternity test first. He completely blew up at that, accusing us of disliking her, untrue, and not wanting to be the grandparents, also untrue. He says he loves her and trusts her and that he can't wait to meet his baby. I get that, but I think he's being idealistic. If he wants our support, we want a paternity test first. If the baby is truly his, then we'd be happy to welcome her into our family, and we'd be happy to help her out. Am I the arsehole?" And we do have an edit and update to this post, but we're going to start off with Tyfling for President, who says, "You're the arsehole, you clearly dislike her. You just told a bunch of strangers that she used to be an addict and you think she could relapse any time. Oh, and that you think she's lying to you and your son to get monetary support. You also told your son you feel this way about a woman that he clearly loves and wants to support. Sure, you can say that it's your money and your rules if you want, but if you'd provide that support without a paternity test if you liked her more, then you're being the arsehole if you try to demand it here. You don't have a right to a test from her. So since your son says that's his child, you need to decide if you'll support his child." Miss Meg says, in quotes, "He completely blew up at that, accusing us of disliking her. Untrue." Then goes on to say, "Reread the first part of your post. Even to internet strangers, it's pretty obvious you don't like this woman. Right off the bat, you aren't being truthful. You're the arsehole." Van Vamar says, "You're the arsehole. Your son believes in treating his girlfriend pregnancy as his, so follow suit. You under no circumstances are obligated to assist financially regardless of who the father is, but your disdain and judgment is incredibly vulgar and you ought to be ashamed of yourself." RO489 says, "I think you're probably an arsehole, but I'm going to say not the arsehole because these are adults and you shouldn't have to pay for her expenses. They should pay for their expenses. You do sound like a snob, and it sounds like your son had a lot of opportunities, like working for daddy and wealthy parents, whereas this girl has had to hustle and struggle." Space Cadet says, "It's your money. This seems reasonable. But I'm not sure why you said it's untrue that you dislike her and don't want her to be the mother of your grandkids, as you basically said everything you dislike about her, and that you didn't think she'd be the kind of person to mother your grandkids. If you dislike her, just say it. You wouldn't be the first person to dislike their children's SO. Not the arsehole." Clancy Monet says, "This is disgusting if it's a real post. You're judging the girl on her past and assuming she's so below your son that it's definitely not his. What has your son joining his dad's business got to do with her? What? Is it going to reflect badly on him? Is it him ruining his life being with her and his child? You really need to get to grips with reality and stop trying to find loopholes in this all being true. It's disgraceful." And we'll have one more from Mama Bear Jam, who says, "No one's an arsehole here. I see both sides of it. You guys get to choose what to do with your money. You didn't have to help her if she won't follow your request. Even if he is the father, you don't owe either of them anything as far as the baby goes. I see two sides because it sounds like you don't trust her from his perspective. I think I would personally support my son's best interest and support him regardless, but ultimately, your money to do with as you see fit. So first, OP comes in with their edit on the post, which says there are like 7k replies to this post and over 200 private messages in my inbox that I can't reply to. It's a pretty even mix of you're the arsehole and not the arsehole. So clearly the only thing everyone can agree with is that it's complicated. I've gotten messages to kill myself, I've gotten messages calling my son an idiot, and I've gotten messages from the MGTOW subreddit telling me that the girlfriend is clearly a lying sociopath. I've also gotten a lot of messages from men who found out their child wasn't theirs after several years, who wish they'd found out sooner. It's a lot to read and a lot to think about. Many people have called out my attitude towards this girl, and I'll be honest, it is making me think. OP then updates the post, which says I received a message asking for an update, so here we go. After my original Reddit post, I talked to my son and asked him what kind of financial help he had in mind. According to him, since she does not have insurance, many of her medical costs were adding up and he wanted to help her with those. A lot of people ask why my adult son was reliant on us, but to us, that is not unusual. He is a recent graduate, and while he will be making a decent salary soon, he has just entered the workforce and does not have much in the way of savings. Plus, our family has always believed in helping each other out. If my daughter was pregnant, we would no doubt help her. I expressed my desire for the paternity test, for his benefit, but he would not budge on that. I tried to warn him of the countless stories of fathers duped into parenting children that weren't his, but he was certain. A couple of weeks later, his girlfriend actually reached out to me herself. We met up and she told me she was embarrassed he had asked for financial help on her behalf, as she did not want to take any assistance. This surprised me, as I assumed she was the one pushing for the money. She was uncomfortable with the paternity test idea, but said she would look into it if it bridged the peace between me and my son. With COVID, the paternity test never ended up happening. It just wasn't a priority. Over the past few months, I have been talking with them more and more. My husband and I bought them a substantial gift for their new home as a gesture of apology and goodwill. We did offer financial help, but my son refused it. By the time the baby was born, I had gotten to know his girlfriend better and was warming up to her joining our family. She truly is a delightful young woman, more so than I gave her credit for. The baby was born 7 weeks ago. It's a boy, and my son is absolutely thrilled. I have not gotten to meet him yet, but I've gotten to see him over video chat and in photos. He looks like my son. It's not an exact resemblance, but I can see my son in this little boy's face. Enough that the paternity doubts are firmly in the back of my mind. Truthfully, I've fallen in love with this little boy, and watching my son grow into becoming a father has been the proudest thing in my life. If I had missed this, I would never have forgiven myself. After the update, I won't read the comments, but I'll give you an overview because they were mixed again, basically talking about how judgmental the mum was in the particular story, quoting that section where it said, "This surprised me as I assumed she was the one pushing for the money," and then obviously going on from the first part of the story where she talked about her recovery and addiction issues, etc. Other people saying that she's glad that she turned it around and seeing her in a new light, etc. and is treating her better. Whilst again, other people saying, she had a right to be concerned. But what do you guys make of this one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from a throwaway account, which says, "Found out boyfriend 29 male has secret tattoo of friend's name." Gosh, I don't know what to think about this. My boyfriend Tom, 29 male, and I, 29 female, have been together for 3 years. Tom was military and went through a pretty nasty divorce 3 years before we met. Through it, he relied heavily on a close friend, Jessica, to get through it, who was also going through a divorce. Tom and Jess are very, very close. Tom has admitted he had strong feelings for Jess, but things just never worked out, and his friends have said in the past that Jess was clearly into him. Jess and Tom talk regularly, hang out regularly, anything friends would. I've never really had an issue with their relationship. While at first I was cautious because of this history and his admitting to having feelings, they are very respectful. Jess is delightful, kind, funny, and just great to be around. She is also an absolute stunner. I'm not frumpy by any means and get plenty of attention, but around Jess, anyone would feel inferior. I enjoy being around Jess, and she and I occasionally hang out without Tom. Regardless of their history, Tom and Jess are just friends and I have no reason to think they are more. But last night, Tom had just finished a volleyball tournament and had just gotten out of the showers. It was sand volleyball and his feet were pretty torn up, so he was cleaning them. And I saw the bottom of his foot. I have no idea how I've never seen this, but he has Jessica's name tattooed on the bottom of his foot like he's fucking Woody from Toy Story or something. I don't know why this bothered me, but immediately all the blood left my face. I just stood there, my mouth agape. Tom noticed and asked what was wrong, and I asked him how long he had that tattoo. He laughed, clearly not reading my reaction, and asked how I had never noticed it, and explained that when he was single and out one night with Jess and a bunch of friends, he was pretty drunk and got it as a joke. Now this is where I probably made a mistake. I should have left it at that, but I didn't buy it, so I pressed a little. I think he could tell I was a bit caught up about it because he was a bit sheepish, but he folded pretty quickly. Apparently he was drunk and in his feelings, and this was in the height of his interest in Jess. He explained that she said something about being jealous because he was dancing with another girl and he said he'd always be hers, to which she laughed. He, in his drunken state, said, "For real, I'd tattoo your name on my foot if I had to." And she said, "Fuck, that would be hot." And they ditched their friends and went to a shop and he did it that night. He explained he was a bit embarrassed by it at first because when they sobered up, it felt a bit thirsty, which, oh my god, it is, but since him and Jess find it a funny joke from a tumultuous time in their lives. God, I should not have asked for more details and he should not have shared as much as he did, but here we are. I was legitimately too stunned to talk. He clearly felt bad. Went to bed without talking much more. I woke up to flowers on the bed this morning. He leaves very early to work out, which was sweet, but I'm still a bit in my head about this. We're supposed to go to a concert with Jess and her boyfriend tomorrow, but I can't stop thinking about that tattoo. I guess when he said they were into each other, I did not realize it was that into each other. I don't really know what to think. I went from not feeling even remotely concerned about Jess to feeling like I would be competing with her forever. Tom has a bunch of tattoos and the vast majority of them are just impulse tattoos with no meaning. Whenever people ask about tattoos, he's like, "Fuck it, just get whatever, life is short, blah blah blah." But it's so hard for me to shed the meaning behind this one, even if it is a joke. I honestly don't know what to think. I could really use some advice on how to process this. Am I gonna have to break up with him? And there was some added info from the comments. So Dry Arse said, "Have they ever been intimate? Why aren't they together?" OP says he told me in the past they have not, and I've had no reason to think that they have been, and he was lying. Tom and I have a strong, honest relationship. I think if they had, he would have communicated that to me, and we would have navigated it at that time. His friends were really supportive of my presence when we first started dating, and when I talked to them about my initial concerns about Jess, they reassured me they never saw anything happen, and didn't think Jess and Tom would be good together. Which now that I know them both much better, I agree. They make wonderful friends, but I do not think they would be good in a relationship together. They are both type A's, enjoy the spotlight, pressing people's buttons, can be argumentative and stubborn. The dynamic works platonically, but I think they'd hate each other if they dated. And my intuition is they covertly know the same thing, which is why it never panned out. Ghost says, "I'm not going to tell you to break up with him or not, but I feel most people would feel very uncomfortable in your situation as well. He and Jess were/are still very close and have admitted strong feelings for each other, have a deep emotional connection, and he has her name tattooed on her. I think it's just simply human to feel how you're feeling right now." Did he say why he lied about the circumstances in which he got the tattoo? Because that was definitely weird and is a little concerning. Personally, I'd find it hard to keep from wondering if there's still feelings on his side, or what would happen if Jess admitted feelings, etc. I don't know. This is a tough one. I'd imagine you're going to have people tell you both sides of the coin, but at the end of the day, it's your choice on how to move forward. Good luck, OP. OP responded saying he didn't really lie. He trickled truth, which knowing now the whole story, I get why he did. I think I would have preferred only knowing it was a drunk tattoo and he was embarrassed by it. Ugh, I feel very stupid for pressing it, but we're here now, I guess. Honestly, I think it might be a funny joke between him and Jess now, but by his tone, I got a sense he's still a little embarrassed by it. A lot of the stories he tells me from that time in his life he tries to be a good spirit about, but I usually get the sense he's embarrassed by how out of control he was. Jamiroquai says and quotes "fuck that would be hot" and then says, "I'm cringing at this response to someone you're casual with getting your name tattooed on him. I'm glad I was always smart enough to never get a boyfriend's name tattooed. I don't know, I might dump him, but as with most people of these posts, there's a lot of missing context and I wonder if you're trying to use a neutral tone. Okay, so why were they both going through divorces at the same time? Were they having affairs with each other and broke the marriages up? What was the catch with Jess? Is she ever shady? It's whatever you're willing to tolerate, but ideally, Tom would be chasing you and not risk keeping Jessica types around." OP replies saying, "I know Tom's divorce was his wife cheating on him during a deployment. He's very nonchalant about it now and says it's part of the army experience. But from the stories I've heard, when he went through the divorce, it was not a good time for him. He's really a big softie, I guess, and it put him in a really dark place. The Tom in the stories he and his friends share are very different from the Tom today. And in our more serious conversations, he has attributed a lot of that to the solid foundation Jessica provided for him, which is why it was important to me to get to know her. Jessica and I haven't talked too much about her divorce, but from bits of stories and offhand comments I gathered her husband was very abusive. She and Tom met at a barbecue at a mutual friend's and connected very well. I only know this because the backyard caught on fire during the barbecue and they've told the story a million times. Jess is never shady with me. Like I said, she is such a delightful and wonderful person. I really enjoy her company. I think she and I would be friends independent of Tom in a different life, if you know what I mean. I don't really understand what you mean by the last part of your comment as far as chasing me." So then OP went on to update the post, which says, "The night I made the post I was actually at my mother's house, as I have dinner with her once a week. There was a really bad storm and I got rained in and stayed there for the night, which was bad timing. The next day, Tom and I were supposed to go to a concert with Jess and her boyfriend." Now, a few things that came up in the last post. First, I trust Tom and he has said in the past nothing has happened between him and Jess. The tattoo doesn't make me doubt that. My sense from the conversations with Tom and with friends in the past is that Tom and Jess were mutually into each other, but it just never panned out. Tom has never gave me any indication that he'd leave me for Jess if the opportunity came, and I spent some time thinking about it and stand by that. Second, I don't think Tom was actively hiding the tattoo from me. He seemed surprised I hadn't noticed it before, and I don't know how I haven't, but nothing gave me an indication that it was a secret I never meant to see. Anyways, Friday morning I got home and Tom and I talked before work. I explained to him how I was feeling, that the tattoo surprised me and it made me have feelings that I wasn't really understanding. He was super apologetic that he had never brought it up explicitly and made it clear he really thought I had noticed before and just didn't care. He said he felt silly for assuming that and that he will communicate better. I had every intent of telling him I'd like him to have it removed, but before I could say anything, he told me he'd spent all night looking at different places to do tattoo removal and that he could tell it upset me and he was planning to get it taken off. He was showing me a place on his phone and said they'd done some really good removals and he felt good about. Some people had suggested that in the first place, and I had done a little reading about tattoo removal and everything said it would be worse than the tattoo itself. So I asked him if it would hurt and he goes, "Yeah, probably a lot. The tattoo was shit to be honest, but if it'll make you feel better, it's worth it." He always says the right things. We talked about it a little and it would be multiple sessions and a couple of $1,000. But the last thing I want for him is to go through the pain because I'm being silly. So I told him he didn't need to do that, and he better take me on a nice date for the money he saved. Joking, of course, to make it up to me. We had a nice breakfast together and off to work we went. As a little extra, at the concert Jess and I scooted off to the bathroom together and to grab more drinks, and she and I were talking and she apologized to me for the tattoo. She reaffirmed that she's very happy with her boyfriend and that her and Tom is long in the past and that she loves him, but they are much better off as friends. She was a little boozy, so she got into how much she loves me and Tom together and how happy she sees that I make him. Honestly, it was really sweet and it helped. I didn't really press, but I imagine Thursday night Tom talked it through with her to try and figure out what to do. I think some people might try to make it nefarious, but I really appreciated that she took the time to reassure me and make me feel better about it. All in all, I think Tom will probably still get the tattoo removed without telling me about it, but I'm not really worried about it. He makes me feel so important and loved, and I don't want something this minor to get in the way of it for me. I've done some regrettable and silly things when I was in a bad place. I'm just lucky enough it's not branded on me forever. So I'm doing my best to not hold it against him. And like the last post, there was mixed comments on the update post as well. Lots of people saying, communication wins the day, people being adults and accepting of one another and all this sort of good stuff. Whilst other people just totally not understanding the relationship at all, saying, this guy thirsted after her for all this time, got a tattoo with her name, and they're not sure they'd be able to deal with that. Whilst other people saying, Jess and the boyfriend probably have hooked up a ton of times in the past. But I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? If you was OP, would you be able to tolerate what was said in that post and move past it? Would you want the tattoo removal? Or do you have another opinion on the matter? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, as always, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in the stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world. So thank you so much. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today